Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football with the Nico saga finally behind this Tennessee program. I think the conversation a lot of Tennessee fans want to have is, hey, how do we put whoever's going to be our quarterback one in 2025? How do we put that quarterback in the best position to be successful immediately in 2025? And look, there's one thing that we know for sure about this Tennessee program, and that is they are sitting on a significant chunk of change that was earmarked for Nico in the 2025 year. That look, Joey Aguilar is not commanding nearly the amount of compensation and money that Nico was commanding heading into 2025. We know that Tennessee has some legitimate bullets in the chamber to really make some significant roster moves, and that might be in the spring transfer portal window. That might be building the 2026 high school recruiting class out. Whatever that might be, we know Tennessee has some ammo to really make some moves over the next couple of weeks and months. There's been a conversation that I've been kind of playing around with in my head that I want to talk about as well, and that is looking at the history of the Josh Heupel offense and saying, hey, Josh Heupel's offenses, whether it was at Tennessee, whether it's going back to looking at it at UCF, when have the Josh Heupel offenses been most successful? You could make the argument. In fact, I think it is. I think you should make the argument that when you look back at the overall track record of the Josh Heupel offense, you could say that the difference makers on the outside, the wide receiver talent, might be more important than having an extremely rawly gifted quarterback. And what I mean by that is you look at the offenses that have been most successful. UCF, it was when Gabe Davis was working vertically down the field and being one of the best wide receivers in the country. At Tennessee, it was with Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Bellis Jones. I mean, you look at it and say Joe Milton and Nico were probably the two most physically gifted quarterbacks that Tennessee had under Josh Heupel. Hendon Hooker, and this is not a shot at Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was a very talented quarterback that ran the Josh Heupel offense extremely well. But what was the difference between the offenses that we saw with Hendon Hooker versus the offenses that we saw with Joe Milton and Nico? Yes, you had better quarterback play. I think Hendon Hooker played better at the quarterback position than either Joe Milton and Nico. But I think one of the common denominators was, look, Hendon Hooker had way more difference makers on the outside than Nico and Joe Milton did. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that when you're talking about this Josh Heupel offense, you could really make the argument that the playmakers on the outside are a little bit more important than what you're getting at the quarterback position from a raw talent standpoint, which I think opens up a unique conversation where, all right, you have a guy in Joey Aguilar who, look, he's a gunslinger. He puts the ball in harm's way probably a little bit more than you're comfortable with. And I'm thinking Josh Heupel is going to try to iron that out in fall camp going into 2025. But now you got some funds to really surround Joey Aguilar or whoever wins that quarterback battle coming out of fall camp with some legitimate weapons on the outside. And look, I'm already pretty high on the Tennessee wide receiver room going into 2025. I think Mikey Matthews could be better than just about any wide receiver that Tennessee had in the 2024 year. I'm a fan of Chris Brazzell. I'm a fan of a guy like Braylon Staley. I think there are some pieces right now that excite you, but I also think you have the opportunity to grab a couple of more names to really form an elite wide receiver room for Tennessee in 2025, which may be more important than having an elite talent at the quarterback position that hasn't really put it together yet. Want to get into some options that Tennessee has in the portal with one guy that I think would be a one perfect fit in the Tennessee offense, but two, be a legitimate difference maker. Before we get into it, as always, to the Tennessee fans, I would love to hear what you guys think about that in the comment section. Like that's just kind of anecdotally, looking at Josh Heupel and going back and looking at the numbers. That is a trend that I kind of picked up on. Would love to hear how the Tennessee fans think of that, and would love to hear your opinions on some of the wide receivers that we're going to talk about over the next couple of minutes. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. The support the Tennessee fans have shown the boys throughout this wild last week has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now let's start with the guy that I think would really significantly upgrade this offense. And I don't think that the wide receiver market is not as robust as I think many of us expected. There just aren't that many difference makers that I think could come into this Tennessee program and elevate the offense. Ted Hurst from Georgia State is one of those guys. Number one, because of the skill set he has. Like we need more wide receivers that can work vertically down the field. Ted Hurst is that guy. 56 catches last year, 961 yards, averaging 17.2 yards per catch. He's one of those wide receivers that at 6'4", 190, I can run right by you, like some legitimate long speed working vertically, but I can also just go right over you and catch the football over you as well. Tremendous body control, tremendous hand-eye coordination, tremendous physicality at the catch point, along with legitimate straight line speed that you can run by defensive backs with too. Like we know Tennessee wants to push the ball down the field. We know they want to take those shots vertically. I think one of the biggest problems with Nico in the 2024 years, like there were a lot of moments, big moments, where those throws were there. And if you want to win football games at the highest level of the SEC, you have to make those throws when you have the opportunity. And too often in the 2024 year, Nico missed them. Joey Aguilar, one of the things that we talked about when Joey Aguilar came to Tennessee was he, from a completion percentage standpoint, throws a better deep ball than a guy like Nico, has a higher completion percentage, 20 plus yards down the field. Ted Hurst would be one of those wide receivers that him and along with probably Chris Brazzell could be those bigger, longer wide receivers that really can work the football or really be that deeper third threat that maybe at times Tennessee lacked. Because you look at a guy like Dante Thornton, on paper last year, that was a guy we loved, as big and really fast wide receiver. He was kind of a one-trick pony, struggled sometimes with physicality at the line of scrimmage, didn't really translate the size-speed combination to the fullest extent during his time at Tennessee. Ted Hurst is a little bit different because we've seen him do it, albeit at the G5 level. We've seen him do it, and I think this would be a guy that you talk about adding a difference maker, a Gabe Davis type player to this Tennessee offense. I think Ted Hurst could be that guy. Now, there's a couple other names to monitor as well. Keelan Marion, not necessarily your big body vertical pass catcher, although can supply you a little verticality in his route tree, more of a do-it-all gadget offensive weapon. I look at him and say probably a little bit overrated, in my opinion, according to 24/7 Sports, like the 19th wide receiver, top 100 overall in the portal, probably not something I would agree with. But another guy that unquestionably elevates your offense because you're just adding another difference maker into that room. And you look at the wide receiver room and say, I like the starting three, but the depth in the wide receiver room is probably a little bit of a question. And with the pace that Tennessee wants to run, you probably want to have a guy that you probably want to have a couple of guys that you can rotate in the wide receiver room. And I think Keelan Marion would be a nice, quite frankly, depth piece for Tennessee in the 2025 year. I don't see him as a guy that comes in and leads Tennessee in targets, where I think Ted Hurst, really could be that guy. Jermichael Carter from McNeese State, another guy Tennessee's kicking around, 6'4", works vertically down the field, averaged nearly 15 yards per catch last year. Like that would be another intriguing addition. And I think what intrigues me the most about him is he's got multiple years of eligibility. So you can bring him in. He probably contributes to your football team in 2025, but really you're probably betting on 2026 and 2027 for a guy like Jermichael Carter, which to me is not a bad process for Tennessee to look at. You look at where Tennessee goes from here, kind of on the heels of that Nico saga. In my opinion, it's, hey, we want to go win games in 2025. Like, this is the Tennessee Vols. We're trying to compete for SEC championships and national championships, but at the same time, we want to build this program the right way. And adding guys that have multiple years of eligibility that give you a nice runway of talent could make a lot of sense as well. Last name I'll throw out on the defensive side of the football is Zaquan Patterson. This is probably another move that's a future move. Like Zaquan Patterson as a freshman, really talented kid coming out of high school, did not play all that well for Miami as a true freshman, but a really talented kid that if he's used the right way, I think can be a really good defensive back in the SEC. Just probably not immediately in 2025. I'm very interested to see how Tennessee decides to go about the next couple of weeks. Like, do they go out and get a guy like Ted Hurst and really try to upgrade this offense immediately in the 2025 year? Or do they say, hey, we're sitting on a bunch of money. Let's go build an elite class in 2026. And maybe we add some guys in the transfer portal that have multiple years of eligibility remaining and really continue to eat your vegetables and build this roster the right way so you can compete for SEC championships for years to come at Tennessee. We'll see probably a little bit of both. Like, hey, we want to go win in 2025, but we also want to do it the right way. We'll see where Josh Heupel decides to go, but something to monitor here is maybe we see a little bit less of throwing massive amounts of money at the quarterback position and making sure we're building an elite pass catcher room around the quarterback too, because you look at it historically, it's when the Josh Heupel offenses look their best. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.